live. We're on.
We're on.
We're on.
We're on.
It's inauguration day.
It is. Yeah.
So anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
We wanted to record this in case anything did happen.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll get more than one episode out this year. Well, it's post-Christmas, so it does seem obvious that we should go for the topic of Turkey.
Turkey theme.
Turkey theme.
Why not? Yes.
Now, we're being very flippant, but there's an amazing story, and it's not even that much of a. It's one that's really bypassed us, I think, in the UK. An amazing story that we encountered. Again, shout out to Antoine Marmotin who pointed this story out to us. But it's an amazing story about football.
Yeah,
and allegations of a Ponzi scheme in Turkey.
Yes, it is. There have been a couple of articles in Bloomberg.com, etc. But no, we've actually had to dig around quite a bit through sort of Turkish press, or translated Turkish press. Our linguistics aren't that good. We do have Alex on hand to help us with some pronunciation, because I'm sure we might get some of these names slightly wrong, but we will do our best.
Yeah, so immediately from the get-go, there is an apology to any Turkish listener, because there are a lot of personalities involved in this story, and we will struggle probably with some of the pronunciation around the names and so on. But it is an amazing story, and it has really great ramifications, I think, for people working in the areas of investigations, in the areas of audit, and compliance generally, because there are some really interesting angles around, outside business interests, record keeping. It's a retail banking situation. It's a private banking situation,
and returns too good to be true, etc.
It's a fascinating story, and really we should get straight into it. So I think, why don't we start the story a little bit back to front, in that we're going to start the story 7th of April 2023. Do you remember where you were 7th of April 2023, DT?
No.
I've had a look back in the calendar, and I do know where I was, because that's my son's birthday.
Oh, okay.
And so I was in the Super Mario Brothers movie, which I remember enjoying very, very much. But do you know what? Now I can't remember a single bit of the plot. So, and has anyone ever thought about that film ever again? No, I don't think they have. So there you go. But on the 7th of April 2023, at DenizBank in Turkey, a customer made a complaint. Approached the bank with a complaint that they had an issue with one of the bank's managers, a young lady, Seçil. Is that right, Alexandra?
Thumbs up.
I'm getting the thumbs up from Alexandra, because there's a cedilla under the sea. Seçil Erzan, who looked after their account, and they had lost contact with her, and were trying to understand where their funds had gone to. So immediately the bank found that they couldn't reach her. She was, I think, as I understand it, I think she was on a planned break from the bank for a few days. But immediately the bank swung into action, made an application for a travel ban. So they obviously assessed it very quickly that there was a problem here. And the reason why they realized it was a problem was because this manager, Seçil, was so connected to, because the branch that she managed was right across the road from Galatasaray Football Club, the biggest club in Turkey, I would imagine. I think it's fair to say. I mean, certainly most British people will know of Galatasaray because of all of the troubles over the years with, infamously, Leeds United, Galatasaray in the year 2000, some horrific events at the UEFA Championship. But certainly, it's a real.
I think it is. You're right to say. Not that I'm a huge football fan, but it is the only Turkish club to have won a UEFA European Cup. So yeah, absolutely, it's sort of head and shoulders above the other clubs there.
So then the next day, the 8th of April, there was this meeting,
which I think is a Saturday. Sorry, just to be clear.
Well, you're right, DC. Because I mean, obviously, this is Turkey, so it's not necessarily Christian focused, but actually, that weekend, it's Good Friday in London.
Yeah.
Good Friday. This is Easter Saturday. So you imagine that markets are quiet, events are quiet. And there was this extraordinary meeting with footballers from Galatasaray, a couple of businessmen, a very famous, a legendary manager of Turkey, a chap called, I'm probably going to get this wrong now, Fatih Terim. Is that right? Oh, you like that? Did you catch where I caught that at the end of my throat? That's pretty good there. Pretty good. I have been practicing a little bit. Who wasn't the manager at Galatasaray, but very, very much involved in the setup there, and a little bit of, I would say, father figure.
Well, I think he's
influential.
Yeah, he's a legendary figure within Turkish football. He managed Galatasaray, I think. What have I got down here? 4 times over 4 different time periods, and the Turkish national team over 3 different time periods. So he's definitely a big name, possibly the biggest name in Turkish football.
Yeah. So Brian Clough.
Esque, I would say.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So interesting. And so this extraordinary meeting, and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. I mean, can you imagine the players, the wags, everyone remonstrating and apparently holding handwritten documents and receipts which were presented as evidence to the bank of cash transfer that they had made to this lady, Seçil, with their money. And they were explaining that she had encouraged them to invest in a secret fund that the bank showed, kept very quiet, that they would only show to certain customers of the bank, which promised extraordinary returns. And they really were extraordinary returns.
Sort of 40% a month or something. So annualizing at sort of crazy numbers.
Really high numbers of return. Yeah, you're right. And it was sort of like 2 month, 3 months type periods that you'd deposit your money and it would come back 20, 30, 40% returns over that period. And so the bank, tried to reach her, couldn't reach her, and then I think officials from the bank very surprised because despite all these footballers being very angry, they were still very much in contact with her, and they actually presented the bank with a contact number, one that the bank didn't have for her, so that the bank could get in touch with her. So they did get in touch with her. She'd left the local area. She'd gone into hiding, apparently. Hiding from the footballers who were the ones that kind of revealed where she was. I mean, it is an extraordinary story, really. I'm laughing, but there's so much of this that goes on in this story. So, and we're still on Easter Saturday, and the only person that she will meet is her regional director, and I'm going to get this name wrong, but it's Sermin Tekin, who goes out to meet her, and very sort of secretive, kind of WhatsApps and mobile phone calls and come to this address. And then a family member opens the door. So again, it's family members. So I think anyone who really was motivated probably could have tracked her down.
Yes, yeah.
So I don't think she's hiding,
she hasn't
properly
gone to
it's not like Safe House kind of, Ruja Ignatova, plastic surgery type situation. This person is hiding, but not really hiding, I would say. So the next day, she was encouraged to come in for a chat to the bank, and she came in for a meeting with internal audit, human resources, legal, and again this regional director. And this meeting carried on all day. She didn't leave until 10 p.m. that night.
Sunday night, this is.
And this is where there's some very interesting accounts, because you've got, by now, I mean, this case has been running for some time. You've got accounts from her legal team, and you've got counter accounts from the bank as to what was happening here.
Yeah.
But the bank, from the bank's perspective, at 10 p.m. she left, followed by 2 security staff for her own safety, that allegedly she was very happy to have with her. I think from her perspective, she was kind of, followed by 2 heavies from the bank to make sure she didn't go anywhere. And then the next day, the 10th, she came in for further interviews and meetings. And this is where, again, it's so interesting for us sitting in the UK, with all of our experience culturally of what we expect to happen, and obviously, we've been in a number of investigation interviews, but there's a great moment where apparently through lack of sleep, she wasn't feeling too good. And so the bank arranged for some doctors to come, and she was given a sort of cocktail of vitamins and some kind of serum to help her relax, which later has sort of been alleged in court that she was given some kind of coercive truth serum. And this was because the bank was so focused on her defense is that the bank was determined to get her to assert that they weren't involved and there was no embezzlement, because again, there's an important part of the case here is about whether the footballers' money actually made it into the bank or not.
Actually touched the bank's systems, or was it all just bags of cash being passed around in a Ponzi scheme type?
And again, because this is a case involving, this could be, you can imagine, if this was the UK and Chelsea players in some branch in Fulham, with the kind of security footage from the bank, with them coming in with suitcases of cash. That is what has been shown on Turkish TV. They have got footage. It's been leaked or it's been bought from the bank or from some insider in the bank. They've got the security footage of people
with big holders of cash,
dropping holders of cash. And in fact, there was and I'm not sure if we'll probably even manage to get into this, but there was a situation where one of the people dropping cash had put an AirTag in the case because they were kind of not sure about where it was going to end up. And then a receiver of the cash, discovered this AirTag and was contacting Seçil. Why is there this AirTag in this big bag of cash that you've given me?
Yes.
So yeah, really, really quite extraordinary. But anyway, so going back, it's all about whether the part of the case is all about whether the bank knew. What did the bank knew? Was the bank involved, or was she some kind of lone, single operator? So the 10th of April passed, and then the 11th of April, she was arrested by the Istanbul prosecutors. And that's really where the legal part of the case kicks off. The bank's done their own investigations, and from there, this is sort of the legal case.
Yes.
So it's an extraordinary story, and it's one I think we should definitely need to analyze some of the footballers and the personalities in the case. And we'll probably get into that, but probably DT. The next thing is to really chart Seçil's progress, in her career, and how did she get to where she got to? How did she get herself into this situation where she was able to have such influence over these people? And we need to encourage people into this secret fund, so to speak,
alleged secret fund, yes.
And also transferring, as we've alluded to, lots of bags of cash around.
So I think we need to go all the way back to 1999, which is where we sort of pick up her trail, as it were. She starts at DenizBank in, I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, Corry, possibly. As a bank clerk, and so within that role and responsibility, she's used to handling cash, and from there, I'm sort of struggling slightly to read this on the board.
So she starts in her 20s. She then moves, to very much sort of up. It's a normal progression. She's not that interested in handling cash. She's not that interested in being a cashier. She's had a few years of experience of that. And then she moves to be an assistant financial advisor, still in the same branch, same bank. And at this point, you can sort of think in terms of the skill set. So she's already acquired, handling cash, all of the bureaucracy that goes with handling of cash. And she's now looking at giving advice, paperwork, think about things like onboarding, know your customer, because those skills are different. Like when you move away from being a cashier to someone who's advising, then the skills get different, don't they, DC?
Yes, absolutely. More paperwork involved, etc., etc. But absolutely, it's a sort of a step up in responsibilities.
And then she moves a small move, but she's moving much more into this kind of investment and advisory type roles, where the next year she becomes a portfolio manager in the retail banking area. And so now at this point, I mean, think about it, this is kind of our area, really, if you like. So she'll be dealing with, dealing, reconciliations.
Yeah.
I can think about, learning about corporate actions, reporting,
and how the systems work, how all things back to back within the bank.
And I guess the observation I've already got thinking about it is, if you're dealing with people who have lots and lots of money that probably aren't that sophisticated, and of course, we're talking about footballers here. Let's be blunt. So these lads are very, very good. They've got great talent.
Yeah.
But their knowledge of the financial markets, I mean, when have they got time? They're training the whole time. So if you're someone that's, trained in, and understands about things like corporate actions, to pull the wool over someone's eyes and start bringing the shutters down, sort of, bringing in complexity where there isn't complexity.
Yeah.
There's already tools that she's been exposed to where she can do that.
Yeah,
or she can be very persuasive around, the bank requiring
don't worry about
some
the minutiae
signatures
of this
for this, or it's an onboarding thing, or it's that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So by 2010, she's got herself up to becoming branch manager in this same branch, her home branch, if you like. So that's 10 years into the career, and I guess, I don't know, I've not been a branch manager of a Turkish bank, but I'm guessing at this point, you're getting in contact with management information. You're getting into risk and P&L reports. You're getting a budget. You're getting control of personnel.
Yeah.
You're able to direct people to do stuff.
Yes.
And it's at this point where she seems to, there's a sort of new trajectory in her career, because her move from that branch to branches. So this branch, it's away from Istanbul. It's sort of in the Turkish kind of environ of Istanbul, the suburbs, if you like.
Yeah.
But she gradually moves closer and closer. And so, go on, DT. What's the next? Have a go at pronouncing the next branch.
Well, I might need Alex on this one. Cheshire? I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe it's Bar Cheshire.
Near Cheshire, somewhere.
Footballers' Wives of Cheshire. So Bar Cheshire, where she's the branch manager. But also on the side, and this is something that you're going to take us through, she starts, it would seem, trading speculatively for her own account.
Yeah, I mean, this is So this is allegations, obviously, but the allegation is more like it. So there's a change in the Turkish market around 2012. So they launched a derivatives exchange there on the Borsa Istanbul, which allows for leverage trading. And this allegedly is where she starts to take quite big bets, I'm assuming with her own money, some of which are successful and some of which obviously are not. And because you can use leverage in some of these products, your profits and losses are therefore very much amplified. And the rumours or allegations are that she was borrowing money from loan sharks to trade the market, and sometimes making an awful lot of money to be able to pay these guys back very quickly. But the minute she got into trouble, she would lose, all of that money and possibly more, and therefore have to start finding other ways to try and fill that by either trading more or borrowing from one loan shark to pay another, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where a lot of the implication about how she understood how markets work, how leverage work, how she possibly then started to lose money, would look to ways to fill that loss.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's no allegation that she's a rogue trader.
No,
but there are a lot of parallels here, aren't there? In the behaviour, because she's kind of doing what other rogue traders have done in the past, and that's how they've kind of got on that slippery slope, i.e., made a bit of a loss. The implication is that she has been getting very, very good tips. The first one, though, is a howler from a family member in a stock called Hartek.
Yeah. And
she makes a loss almost immediately.
Yeah.
But that doesn't put her off. And she's able to get better information over the years. And this is sort of the first thing. there's a lot of cultural and practice sort of differences between Turkey and the UK.
Yeah.
And we're not speaking as Turkish experts, but what we are thinking about, and Dame, you and I have traded Turkey over the years, and we, thinking back to the 1990s, we have been very exposed to the weakness in the Turkish lira.
Yeah.
Lots of financial packages where they've been rescuing the economy, doing deals with whatever agencies so that they will stabilize the lira, try and control inflation and so on. And it's in this kind of environment where you have to, as a Turkish citizen, you've got to make your money work.
Yes.
Right? And I think about my experience in Brazil. You think very differently in a country with hyperinflation, which at times you will have, or currency fluctuations and weakness. You will behave very differently than we would behave or expect to behave in the UK. So she seems to be doing this activity as like an influencer, like she is letting people know that she is this kind of investor on the side, outside of the bank. I think,
definitely, to be clear, from what we can read, outside of the bank. So it's not like she's taking any of the bank's money to do this. It is with her own money, as far as we can ascertain.
It's murky because again, there's in some reports we've read there are inferences that she was actually covering the losses with bank customers' money, but then also you've mentioned about loan sharks, and it seems to us that enough of these stock tips were successful enough that she was able to borrow money or to take money and pay exorbitant rates of return to individuals. That meant that she could fund her trading. At this point, around 2012 to end of 2011, in fact, she gets transferred in to be the branch manager of the Floria branch, which is the branch right across the road from Galatasaray. And this is such a quick move from 2010 in the local branch, her home branch. 2 branches time, she's now in the
one of the premier branches.
The premier branch, and there's clearly a drive within DenizBank to want to win the business of the footballers. And indeed, in 2013, the bank enters into a sponsorship deal with the team, and this gives her really good access to the players inside of the team and starting to advise them on how to manage their own money, but in particular to this father figure, Fatih Terim. And also she becomes so friendly with him. There's a lot of pictures in the press of her staying at his house, staying with his wife. She becomes advisor to family members within the family, managing their money too. And I think there is an implication or, an allegation that maybe she got the role in that branch because of his influence, and maybe she knew him before. Then that's not really been cleared up. He's made statements saying no, that's not the case.
Quite. It's a grey area, as you say, but absolutely, you're right. And also, as you say, but being the branch manager, she would meet, one of her remits is to get out and meet all these footballers, all these high net worths that are clients of the bank.
And it seems to me, and this sort of goes back to this stock trading on the side and thinking about, we within the UK banking system, or finance, we look at outside business interests. We have a lot of control around personal account dealing.
Absolutely, yeah.
These controls just do not seem to have existed, or she has completely circumvented them and bypassed them, because it does seem that she is able to kind of utilize this kind of role as some kind of super investor, influencer. And in fact, indeed in the press, they're talking about her as a bank manager as if she somehow, magically should be able to predict stock moves. And, we're both traders who've lost lots of money over the years because, yes, you have some ability to anticipate where market flows might go. But really, well, I totally believe this. Anyone who thinks they can call a market is just deluding themselves, absolutely deluding themselves. And if there's any students listening to this thinking I want a career in finance because I'll somehow be given the secrets to reading the markets, you may as well go down to Starbucks and ask them for a cup of tea and have a look in the tea leaves, because there is no way you can predict the markets. You can give yourself some, position things statistically in your favor and things, strategically that make sense, but there is no sort of magic secret formula that people learn about. I mean, chartists might have a different view, of course, but I'm very, very negative on chartism. Right. So it's at this point where she's become so close to Fatih that she is able then, it seems, to start persuading people that somehow, because she's looking after his money, they should be putting their
there's
money
a sort of secret
with her
fund that he has sort of given the green light to, or allegedly, that the best customers of the bank should also be invited to join, because she's getting incredible returns for him and other players.
But this seems to have come out quite late, right? Because it's the implication is that from 2012 for really the next 10 years, her own strategy of just dealing on stock tips, borrowing like crazy from loan sharks, and making great returns and repaying them, is kind of working out okay.
Yes.
But then there is an event, isn't there, Damian, that changes things?
There is. It's in 2022. We had a quick look at the charts to see what was going on. There was a big rally in the Turkish stock market, and I think the market itself was up something like 50% in 2 months, and the bank stocks especially were on fire. They were up 150% in 2 months. So there was a big rally going on in the overall Turkish market, which, funnily enough, ran very hard into a brick wall. So, having seen returns of the banks of 150% in 2 months, they then collapsed by about 40-50% in the next 2 weeks. And you can imagine any leverage trades into that rally would have done phenomenally well, but then would be completely wiped out with a 40% drawdown. If you think, your leverage is anything more than 2.5 times, that's all your money gone. So this is, I think, where problems really start to occur. And I think that sort of that golden touch, whatever, is deserts her, and she then is starting to struggle to fill these losses.
Well, especially if you're doing your investing on the back of money borrowed from,
yes, exactly,
people that are charging, massive rates of return, as loan sharks do, and probably even greater in Turkey because of currency and all the rest of it. Although to be fair, I'm not sure. Maybe the Turkish lira was quite stable. I
did have a look. It was relatively stable over that period of time.
Yeah, so is that not that case? But still, so this is where things have started to get difficult for her.
Yeah,
and it's at this point that she seems to confide in Fatih, and he gives her some money to invest. So she's sort of persuaded him that she's some kind of star investor. And this is, again, another sort of interesting cultural aspect about this case. And it goes into, I think, anyone working in the kind of the private client area and thinking about the super rich. I mean, just despite all the video evidence of footballers going in with suitcase of cash, there are people that just would never go near a bank, wouldn't even know where their bank was.
Yeah,
because they're so wealthy. Why would they ever go to their bank?
Yeah,
they have people that deal with this stuff, and I know this from my own experience, not from my own experience, but from growing up in Brazil, for example, you wouldn't go to the bank. The Brazilian society, you would have someone who would go down for you, collect things, arrange things, and
if you're a good client, I assume the bank might even come to you.
Absolutely. And thinking about this from other professionals too, your lawyer, your doctor, these people would all show up at your place. The bank is at pains to show that they had no line of sight of the activity of what she was up to, and the fact that none of the money came in or passed through the bank. this hasn't necessarily been alleged, but I think looking at this situation, I can see it. I can see it being the case that controls for Seçil, from 2013 around handling of cash for these players might have been pretty loose, because the bank's just like, you just need to go out and get this business.
Yeah.
Just do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I think she becomes a sort of 24/7 concierge almost to them. I mean,
Exactly.
it is literally,
and
player X needs cash. He's going on holiday. Can we, get him $20,000 or whatever? And I think that's. I suppose we sitting here in the UK would go, that's odd, big lumps of cash being carried around like that. I think it's just very different. I think I think cash is used much more freely in Turkey than it is now, as we sort of move into this slight cashless society here. But I think, taking a suitcase of cash to somewhere or from somewhere, perfectly normal course of events over there, I think.
And as we've seen with other, going back to the road trading analogy, when you've got someone who's succeeding, when someone who's making profit, when someone's a star, you take your eye off the ball.
Yeah.
And so if she's not documenting what she's doing, and they're getting a little bit loose around controls in terms of, booking of cash and so on and so forth. And think about, talking with you about this case, as we have been all week, because it's been so fascinating.
Yeah.
Think about when you and I have dealt in an IPO, for example, and you're the market maker on IPO, you're in so much trouble within like 5 minutes of trading if you're not noting everything down, every transaction, because you just can't physically recall 20 minutes later what you did 15 minutes ago. And it's a really dangerous thing to start dealing and not documenting everything you're doing, isn't it?
Oh, completely. I mean, we've all had paper block. I mean, certainly when we started, everything went down on a paper blotter. You'd record everything immediately, because you need to be able to go back to reconstruct what happened. You can't just go, oh yeah, Johnny shouted over, and you've done 20,000, and then suddenly that's not written down, and suddenly you've got there's a gap.
And it doesn't have to be paper. I mean, it's just books and records. You've got to get this stuff into the books and records, and if you don't, and you're then leaving stuff, and you're quite possibly, I don't know. I've never looked after a football team, but how many suitcases, how many envelopes with $10,000 are being handed around, in various places to various drivers to go and get stuff? I'm sure you can lose track of stuff. So I think the controls there around individuals, access to customer money, how they're servicing customers. I think the concierge analogy is a brilliant one, to think about. And then thinking about, again, this controls around outside business interest and personal account dealing, and anyone in these roles, are they doing something that's elevating their ability to attract high value clients to deal with them outside of the bank, but using that for the bank, because that's got to be disclosed. So it's, how well are you getting into what your staff are up to? Have you done? I think you have done a little bit of work, DC, on who some of the personalities are on the footballing side.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the allegation is that a total of $44 million has gone missing, or was chewed up within this scheme. The biggest loser appears to be someone called Arda Turan, who's a midfielder who played for Galatasaray and then Barcelona, and has played for the Turkish national team over 100 times. So from what we can read, he invested a total of $13.9 million. But some of that did come back. I think in a classic sort of Ponzi scheme type way, cash was being handed over, and then, you'd hand over 2 million, you'd get 1 million back, 2 months later. That was allegedly the interest you'd earn. That wasn't even, that's not your principal. That's just the interest in the other, the other two will be coming along shortly. Don't worry. So allegedly he put 13.9 million in, got some back. We're not sure how much, but it's definitely out of pocket. Another player called Emre Cholak was allegedly $3.2 million in. He was another midfielder that played for Galatasaray, and another called Emre Belozoglu I probably pronounced that wrong again, I'm afraid, who played for Galatasaray, Inter Milan, and also had a stint in the Premier League playing for Newcastle between 2005 to 2008. So people might have heard of him. I'm afraid I haven't. And he played 101 times for Turkey as well. So these are big name stars, and these are big losses. That's between those three, that's sort of $30 million, and there's a lot of other smaller sums of money allegedly from other players, but those were the three big names within it that have lost a lot of money.
And the allegations seem to be that she has never engaged Fatih and got him to come round with her and get these players in.
Correct.
But it's not clear whether he's involved or not. But it seems that she's certainly used him as a calling card. Certainly, whether she's given the impression of being so close to him that immediately everyone's got trust and they want to part with their cash and invest. And I think she said to people, Fatih is involved, I look after his money, we're making great returns. What is wonderful in terms of this all being uncovered is it's the wives and girlfriends, the wags, who have really kind of smelt a rat and then approached the husband and gone, where's all the cash?
Where's all this cash gone? Yeah.
And I think it's the wives of some of these players that have gone to Fatih's wife and said, what's going on? And that's how it's been uncovered. And again, because of her access and knowledge of these players' accounts, I think she's been using a bit of almost like, blackmail tactics, going, well, if you really want to go in how you spend your money, and reveal to your wives about how you've been spending all of the cash, outside of these investments. There's sort of some interesting aspects there too. So where are we on the case?
Well, so I think the last thing we've seen, I think, was back in December of last year. So she's still incarcerated, awaiting trial. I think they've had some. So I think the coach has made a statement along the lines of, "I knew absolutely nothing about this. And I can't believe my name has been even put towards this scheme. I really did know nothing about it." At the moment, I think the prosecutor's office has pushed it back and saying there's insufficient evidence at the moment to take anything further. But she is still incarcerated. She's looking to be jailed up to, I think they're saying 240 years. And I think we're going to sort of watch this space.
And the CEO of the DenizBank, he stepped down, hasn't he?
The CEO, yes, he has stepped down and been replaced by someone, I think, from BBVA. And there's a lot on their website about how I think the press has covered this pretty aggressively, trying to paint them in a bad light. DenizBank has come out and said, "Listen, none of this went through our books. So if it did go through the books, then we would look possibly to compensate people. But wherever we've looked, we can't find any record of this. So at the moment, I think it's just her on the hook. But I think it's a definite watch this space to see where it goes."
It's an interesting one, as well as how quickly it all blew up, because actually she was audited between 2012 as a branch manager up to April 2023. She was audited 5 times, which is about right. Yeah. You go through every couple of years, and you don't want to be upsetting the business. And in that time, there were no complaints against her, no customer complaints, and she achieved apparently high scores in audit. So I don't know what the scoring system is around an audit. I've never seen that in an audit report. Maybe Turkey's different. I don't know. And also maybe it's a retail banking thing. Maybe they have their particular kind of scores around how advice has been given, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But there seems to have been no cause to sort of suspect the activity of this lady until literally the 7th of April, when people came with their customer complaint, and then the whole sorry tale just unraveled and erupted on this one. So there we go. So start of the year.
Yep.
A great story. I think a lot for us to think about. Great to be able to look outside into another market.
Yep.
But of course, we will have people covering Turkey and other markets like it. We will have people covering, private customers, high net worth, and lots of things to think about. And I'll be interested to, for the next internal investigation interview I go to, where there is a team of doctors on standby with some kind of vitamin serum in case the interviewee is feeling a little bit faint and didn't get much sleep the night before, which often happens. People don't sleep; they get worried about these things.
Sure
So
they do, yeah.
maybe we can offer that as some kind of Skadi add-on. Great stuff.
Brilliant. Well,
all right, Damian. Well, great story. Thanks, Antoine, for flagging that one to us.
Yes.
I hope we've done it justice. And also, anyone who has any further insights, this is a great one to get chatting to in Skadi's chat community on the Skadi Discord. Link in the podcast episode if you'd like to join that. Look through all of the materials and indeed of all the other podcasts that we do, because we always put things into their own individual place on Discord where people can chat and you can meet like-minded people and discuss the Skadi podcast. So thanks very much until we meet again for another great episode.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Skadi podcast featuring Nic, Corry and Damian Taylor. This podcast is produced by me, Alexandra Mexi. If you found today's episode interesting, you want to be a friend of the show and interact with like-minded people, you should join the Skadi Discord. Our chat community is a big treasure trove of information where you can find all the materials we use to produce our podcasts. If you want to listen to more episodes, then simply search the Skadi podcast on any streaming platform. Feel free to connect with us at Skadi Limited on LinkedIn to read about our research and business relation to anti-financial crime and control functions. Until next time, thank you for listening.